Welcome, dear friend. I know you watch this video to fall asleep. So before that, like, comment, and share this video. Also, where are you from? And what time is it where you are from? Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is discovering that the key to profound peace has been hiding in plain sight for over 2,500 years. Maybe that someone is you. Tonight, I want to share 7 ancient principles that have the power to transform your relationship with stress, anxiety, and the endless mental chatter that keeps so many of us trapped in cycles of suffering. These aren't just philosophical concepts or feel-good platitudes. These are practical tools that have been tested by millions of people across centuries, refined through countless moments of human struggle and breakthrough. If you've found yourself here, there's probably a reason. Perhaps you're lying awake at 3 in the morning, mind racing with tomorrow's worries. Maybe you're sitting in traffic, feeling your jaw clench as frustration builds inside your chest. Or you might be going through your daily routine feeling like you're sleepwalking through your own life, present in body but absent in spirit. Whatever brought you here, know that you're not broken. You're not failing at life because you struggle with peace. You're simply human, navigating a world that seems designed to pull your attention in every direction except the one that actually matters. The Buddha, over 2 millennia ago, made a radical discovery. He realized that suffering isn't caused by external circumstances, but by our relationship to those circumstances. This insight became the foundation for a way of living that kenotic existence into something approaching transform even the most chaste serenity. These 7 rules we're about to explore aren't commandments handed down from some distant authority. They're discoveries about how consciousness works, how peace emerges naturally when we stop fighting against the fundamental rhythms of existence. They're invitations to remember what you already know deep down, but may have forgotten in the noise of modern living. Before we begin, let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt completely at ease? Not just relaxed or entertained, but genuinely peaceful. That feeling of being exactly where you belong, exactly when you belong there. Most people struggle to remember such a moment, and that's not because peace is rare or difficult to achieve. It's because we've been conditioned to look for it in all the wrong places. The first rule might surprise you with its simplicity, yet it contains the seed of every other principle we'll discuss tonight. Rule 1. Accept what is, change what you can. There's a profound difference between acceptance and resignation, though most people confuse the two. Resignation is giving up, throwing in the towel, deciding that nothing matters because nothing can be changed. Acceptance is something entirely different. It's the recognition that reality has already arrived, and fighting against what has already happened is like trying to argue with gravity. Think about the last time you were caught in unexpected rain without an umbrella. You had a choice in that moment. You could spend your energy being angry at the weather, upset with yourself for not checking the forecast, frustrated that your plans were disrupted, or you could accept that you were going to get wet and focus on getting somewhere dry as efficiently as possible. The person who fights the rain arrives at their destination soaked and miserable. The person who accepts the rain arrives at their destination soaked but somehow lighter, having saved their emotional energy for things that actually matter. This principle extends to every aspect of human experience. Your difficult coworker isn't going to suddenly become pleasant because you wish they would. Your financial situation won't improve through worry alone. Your past mistakes can't be undone by replaying them endlessly in your mind. But here's where acceptance becomes revolutionary rather than passive. When you stop wasting energy fighting against unchangeable realities, that energy becomes available for meaningful action. The Buddhist understanding of acceptance includes a clear-eyed assessment of what can actually be influenced. You cannot control other people's reactions, but you can control your responses. You cannot control whether opportunities arise, but you can control how prepared you are to meet them. You cannot control the thoughts that arise in your mind, but you can control whether you believe them, feed them, or simply observe them passing through like clouds across the sky. This discernment between what can and cannot be changed isn't always obvious. Sometimes we accept things that could actually be transformed through skillful action. Other times, we exhaust ourselves trying to change things that are completely beyond our influence. The practice begins with developing what Buddhist teachers call clear seeing. Before reacting to any situation, you pause and ask yourself 3 questions. What about this situation is already fixed and unchangeable? What aspects remain fluid and open to influence? And what would happen if I stopped fighting the fixed elements and focused my attention on the changeable ones? A woman once told me about discovering this principle during her divorce proceedings. For months, she had been consumed with anger about her ex-husband's behavior, spending countless hours replaying arguments, imagining different scenarios, wishing he would acknowledge his mistakes and treat her with more respect. One day, exhausted by the mental torment, she realized she was trying to change someone who had clearly demonstrated his unwillingness to change. She couldn't control his actions, his attitudes, or his choices, but she could control her own responses, her own healing process, and her own future decisions. The moment she stopped trying to change him and started focusing on what she could actually influence, everything shifted. Her energy returned, her sleep improved. She began making practical decisions about her life instead of staying trapped in cycles of resentment and fantasy. This wasn't about becoming passive or letting people treat her poorly. It was about directing her power toward places where it could actually make a difference. Rule 2. Observe your mind without judgment. Most people live their entire lives without ever really noticing the quality of their own thoughts. They're so identified with their mental activity that they can't distinguish between themselves and the endless stream of commentary running through their heads. Buddhist practice reveals something remarkable about the nature of mind. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes thoughts. This distinction might seem subtle, but it's the difference between being trapped in a storm and watching a storm pass through the sky. When you begin to observe your mental patterns without immediately judging them as good or bad, right or wrong, you discover something liberating. Thoughts arise by themselves according to conditions you didn't consciously create. They exist for a while, change form, and eventually dissolve back into the space of awareness from which they emerged. The angry thought that arises when someone cuts you off in traffic isn't you being a bad person. It's simply a mental formation that appeared due to specific conditions. The worried thoughts that keep you awake at night aren't evidence of your weakness or failure. They're temporary weather patterns in the sky of your consciousness. This perspective transforms your relationship with difficult mental states. Instead of fighting against anxious thoughts or trying to suppress depressive feelings, you can observe them with the same interested attention you might give to clouds forming in the distance. The practice begins with simply noticing. Throughout your day, whenever you remember, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what kind of thoughts are present right now? Are they worried thoughts, planning thoughts, judgmental thoughts, grateful thoughts? You're not trying to change anything at first. You're just developing familiarity with the landscape of your own mind. Most people are shocked to discover how repetitive their thinking actually is. The same worries circling day after day. The same judgments arising in predictable situations. The same mental habits playing out like songs stuck on repeat. But within this recognition lies tremendous freedom. When you can see your thought patterns clearly, they begin to lose their automatic power over your emotions and behaviors. You start to recognize the difference between thoughts that are useful and thoughts that are simply noise. The Buddhist teaching compares untrained thoughts to a wild elephant, powerful but uncontrolled, causing damage even when it means well. Through patient observation without judgment, you gradually develop the capacity to work with your mental energy skillfully rather than being dragged around by it unconsciously. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally flat or losing your capacity for appropriate responses to life's challenges. It means developing the stability to respond from wisdom rather than simply reacting from conditioning. When someone criticizes you, instead of immediately defending yourself or attacking back, you can pause and observe what's arising in your mind. You might notice hurt feelings, angry thoughts, or the urge to prove them wrong. With this awareness, you can choose how to respond in a way that's actually helpful rather than just reactive. The practice deepens when you begin to notice not just the content of your thoughts, but their quality and texture. Some thoughts feel heavy and draining. Others feel light and energizing. Some thoughts seem to spiral endlessly without resolution. Others point toward clear action or understanding. This quality of observation, what Buddhists call mindfulness, gradually becomes a natural part of how you move through life. You begin to live with a kind of gentle awareness that notices what's happening in your inner landscape without being overwhelmed by it. Rule 3. Cultivate patience as sacred practice. In our culture of instant gratification, patience has become almost a foreign concept. We expect immediate results, quick fixes, and solutions that work right away. But Buddhist wisdom reveals patience as one of the most transformative forces available to human consciousness. True patience isn't gritting your teeth and enduring what you don't want to experience. It's the recognition that everything unfolds according to its own natural timing, and trying to force different timing usually creates more suffering than it prevents. Consider how a tree grows. It doesn't strain to become taller or struggle to produce fruit out of season. It simply receives what's available in each moment, whether that's sunlight, rain, or winter dormancy, and responds appropriately. The tree's patience isn't passive waiting, but active engagement with the natural rhythms of growth and change. Human transformation follows similar principles. The healing of old wounds happens gradually, layer by layer. The development of new skills requires consistent practice over time. The resolution of complex life situations often involves elements that need to align in their own sequence. When you can align yourself with these natural rhythms, instead of fighting against them, life becomes infinitely easier and more harmonious. Think about the last time you were stuck in slow-moving traffic, drumming your fingers on the steering wheel, feeling your stress levels rise with each passing minute. That impatience didn't make the cars move faster. It didn't solve the problem. It simply added a layer of suffering to an already inconvenient situation. Now imagine approaching that same traffic jam with genuine patience. Not the forced kind where you're still internally fuming, but the deep patience that comes from understanding that this moment is exactly what it is, and your resistance won't change the external reality. In that patience, something remarkable happens. Your nervous system relaxes. Your mind clears. You might even find yourself noticing things you usually miss. The way light plays across the buildings, the expressions on other drivers' faces, the simple fact that you're alive and breathing in this moment. This shift in your inner experience doesn't change the traffic, but it completely transforms your relationship to the situation. You arrive at your destination in a fundamentally different state of being than if you had spent those minutes in frustrated resistance. Patience becomes sacred when you recognize it as a form of trust in the intelligence that governs all natural processes. Seeds don't sprout the moment they hit the soil. Wounds don't heal the instant they occur. Relationships don't deepen overnight. Understanding doesn't dawn all at once. The practice of sacred patience begins with small, everyday irritations. The slow internet connection, the long line at the grocery store, the friend who's always running late. Instead of immediately jumping into frustration, you can pause and ask yourself what this moment is inviting you to practice. Often, these minor inconveniences are life's way of offering you opportunities to develop the muscle of patience that you'll need for larger challenges. The person who learns to wait peacefully for their coffee order is developing the same capacity they'll need to navigate a family crisis or a career transition with grace. But patience isn't just about waiting, it's about maintaining your center while engaging fully with whatever process is unfolding. A master gardener doesn't simply plant seeds and wait passively. They tend the soil, provide appropriate conditions, and trust that growth will happen in its own time when the conditions are right. Similarly, when you're working toward any meaningful change in your life, patience allows you to take consistent action while releasing attachment to specific timelines. You can show up fully for your practice, your relationships, your creative work, without the desperate energy that comes from needing immediate results. This quality of patient engagement transforms how you approach everything from learning new skills to healing old traumas. Instead of becoming discouraged when progress seems slow, you can appreciate each small step as part of a larger unfolding that has its own perfect timing. Rule 4. Practice non-attachment to outcomes. Perhaps no Buddhist principle is more misunderstood than non-attachment. Most people hear this term and imagine becoming cold, distant, or uncaring about the results of their actions. But true non-attachment is actually the opposite. It's caring so deeply about what you're doing that you can engage fully without being enslaved by your need for specific results. Imagine an artist who becomes so attached to having their work praised that they can't enjoy the process of creating. Every brushstroke becomes anxious, every color choice filtered through worry about how others will respond. The attachment to outcome has poisoned the very activity that once brought joy and meaning. Now imagine the same artist creating from a place of non-attachment. They still care deeply about their work. They put tremendous effort and attention into each piece, but they're not dependent on external validation for their sense of worth or satisfaction. They can engage fully in the creative process because they're not constantly measuring their progress against imagined expectations. This is the freedom that non-attachment offers. Not the absence of caring, but the presence of caring without clinging. Think about a time when you performed at your best in any area of life, whether it was a conversation, a presentation, a sports activity, or simply being present with someone you love. Chances are, in those moments of peak performance, you weren't obsessing about the outcome. You were simply absorbed in the activity itself, fully present with what was happening right now. Athletes call this being in the zone. Artists call it flow. Spiritual traditions call it presence. But they're all pointing to the same experience of engaged non-attachment, where your full capacity becomes available because you're not wasting energy on mental projections about future results. The practice of non-attachment begins with recognizing how much mental energy you spend fantasizing about outcomes that haven't happened yet, planning conversations that may never occur, worrying about scenarios that exist only in your imagination, rehearsing success or failure stories that have no basis in current reality. When you notice your mind spinning these outcome-focused stories, you can gently redirect your attention to what's actually available for your influence right now. What action can you take today? What conversation can you have in this moment? What practice can you engage with right here? This doesn't mean abandoning all planning or goal setting. It means holding your plans lightly, like suggestions rather than demands you're making of life. You can work diligently toward desired outcomes while remaining open to the possibility that life might have something even better in store. A businessman once shared how this principle transformed his approach to important negotiations. Previously, he would enter meetings with rigid ideas about exactly what needed to happen. He would become so focused on getting his predetermined outcome that he missed opportunities for creative solutions that would benefit everyone involved. When he learned to prepare thoroughly while holding his expectations lightly, everything changed. He could listen more carefully to what others were actually saying, instead of just waiting for his turn to push his agenda. He became more responsive to the natural flow of conversation. Often, the meetings would evolve in directions he never could have planned, leading to outcomes far better than his original goals. This is the paradox of non-attachment. When you stop grasping desperately for specific results, you often end up with results that exceed your wildest expectations, not because you've stopped caring, but because you've stopped interfering with the natural intelligence that emerges when you're fully present with what is. Rule 5. Embrace impermanence as liberation. Everything changes. This simple fact, when truly understood and accepted, becomes one of the most liberating truths available to human consciousness. Yet most of us spend enormous energy trying to make permanent what is naturally temporary, creating suffering through our resistance to the fundamental nature of existence. Consider your own body for a moment. The cells in your stomach lining replace themselves every few days. Your red blood cells are renewed every few months. Even your bones, which seem so solid and permanent, are constantly breaking down and rebuilding themselves. The body you inhabit today contains very few of the same physical components it had 7 years ago. Yet you probably think of yourself as the same continuous person who has simply aged. This illusion of permanence extends to every area of life. We act as if our current job will last forever, as if our relationships should never change, as if our thoughts and feelings are permanent fixtures of our identity. But when you begin to see impermanence clearly, it stops being a source of anxiety and becomes a source of tremendous freedom. That difficult phase you're going through, it's temporary. The mistake you made yesterday, it doesn't define you permanently. The success you achieved, it doesn't need to be clung to desperately because your worth isn't dependent on maintaining it. Understanding impermanence also reveals why trying to hold on to pleasant experiences creates suffering. The beautiful sunset will end. The perfect conversation will conclude. The feeling of being in love will evolve and change form. When you try to grasp these experiences, trying to make them permanent, you miss their actual beauty, which lies partly in their fleeting nature. Think about the difference between a photograph of a flower and a living flower blooming in a garden. The photograph captures a moment, freezes it, makes it permanent, but it lacks the vitality, the subtle changes in light, the gentle movement that makes the living flower so captivating. Life's beauty emerges from its constant flow and change, not despite it. The practice of embracing impermanence begins with observing the constant changes happening around you and within you throughout each day. Your mood shifts, your energy levels fluctuate, your thoughts arise and dissolve. The light outside your window gradually changes. Sounds come and go. Even your breath, which seems so stable, is constantly moving in and out of your body. When you start paying attention to these subtle changes, you begin to see that permanence was always an illusion. Nothing in your experience has ever actually stayed the same for more than a moment. What you thought was stability was actually a continuous flow of change happening so smoothly that you didn't notice it. This recognition transforms how you relate to both pleasant and unpleasant experiences. When something wonderful happens, you can appreciate it fully without the desperate need to make it last forever. When something difficult, it with greater EQ arises, you can navigate anonymity, knowing that its nature is to change and eventually pass. A woman going through a painful divorce described how understanding impermanence helped her navigate that difficult period. Instead of being consumed by the story that her life was ruined forever, she could recognize that this was a phase of transition. The pain she felt was real and valid, but it wasn't a permanent state. Her identity wasn't fixed as a divorced person or a victim of circumstances. She began to see the divorce not as an ending, but as a transformation. The form of her life was changing, but her essential capacity for happiness, love, and growth remained intact. By working with the natural flow of change rather than resisting it, she was able to move through the transition with much less suffering and actually emerged with a deeper sense of who she was beneath all the temporary roles and circumstances. This doesn't mean becoming indifferent to loss or pretending that endings don't matter. It means understanding that everything that arises will also pass away, and everything that passes away makes space for something new to emerge. Your willingness to let go of what's ending determines how gracefully you can receive what's beginning. The practice deepens when you begin to see impermanence not as something happening to you, but as the very fabric of existence itself. Like a river that appears constant from a distance, but reveals its continuous movement when observed closely. Your life maintains its essential flow, while every detail shifts and transforms. This understanding brings a profound sense of relief to areas where you've been holding on too tightly. That argument with your partner last week? The emotions from it have already changed form multiple times. The embarrassing moment at work? It exists now only in memory, and even memories shift and fade. The financial stress that keeps you awake at night? The circumstances creating it are already evolving, even if you can't see the changes yet. But perhaps most importantly, embracing impermanence frees you from the exhausting task of trying to control outcomes that were never truly within your control in the first place. When you understand that everything flows and changes according to natural laws much larger than your personal preferences, you can relax into the current of existence rather than swimming frantically against it. Rule 6. Develop loving kindness toward all beings. This principle often encounters immediate resistance in our culture of justified anger and righteous indignation. How can you possibly extend loving kindness to people who have harmed you? To politicians whose policies you despise? To strangers who cut you off in traffic while talking loudly on their phones? The answer lies in understanding what loving kindness actually means in Buddhist practice. It's not pretending that harmful behavior is acceptable. It's not forcing yourself to like everyone. It's not becoming a doormat who allows others to take advantage of your kindness. Loving kindness is the recognition that every being, regardless of their current behavior, shares the same fundamental desire to be happy and free from suffering. Even the most difficult people in your life are acting from their own confused attempts to find peace and security. Their methods might be misguided, their behavior might be harmful, but their underlying motivation is identical to yours. This perspective doesn't excuse harmful actions or eliminate the need for boundaries and consequences, but it does transform your inner response to difficult people from reactive hatred to compassionate understanding. And this transformation in your inner landscape has profound effects on both your well-being and your effectiveness in dealing with challenging situations. Consider how you feel physically and emotionally when you're consumed with anger towards someone. Your jaw tightens, your shoulders tense, your stomach churns. Your sleep becomes restless. Your mind obsessively replays scenarios of conflict and revenge. You become less present with the people you actually love. The person you're angry with continues their life largely unaffected, while you carry the poison of resentment in your own body and mind. Now imagine encountering that same person while maintaining a basic attitude of loving kindness. You still see their behavior clearly. You still take appropriate action to protect yourself or others if necessary. But you're not burning up your own life force with hatred. You can respond from clarity and strength rather than reactive emotion. The practice begins with yourself, which is often the most challenging place to start. Most people have a harsh internal voice that criticizes their every mistake, compares them unfavorably to others, and maintains a running commentary of judgment and dissatisfaction. Learning to speak to yourself with the same kindness you would offer a beloved friend is often revolutionary. Throughout your day, notice the tone of your internal dialogue. When you make a mistake, do you respond with compassionate understanding or harsh self-criticism? When you're struggling with a challenge, do you offer yourself encouragement or focus on your inadequacies? When you look in the mirror, do you see someone deserving of love or someone who needs to be fixed before they're acceptable? Gradually, you can begin to soften this internal harshness. When you notice self-critical thoughts arising, you can pause and ask yourself how you would respond if a dear friend was going through the same struggle. Then offer yourself that same quality of compassionate support. From this foundation of self-kindness, extending loving kindness to others becomes more natural. You start with easy targets, people you already love and appreciate. You might, and freedom from suffering as silently wish them happiness, peace, you go about your day. This isn't just a nice sentiment, but a practice that literally rewires your brain to default toward benevolence rather than judgment. The practice gradually expands to include neutral people, those you neither particularly like nor dislike. The cashier at the grocery store, your neighbors, strangers you pass on the street. You begin to see these anonymous figures as fellow travelers dealing with their own challenges and aspirations. Eventually, the practice includes difficult people, those who trigger your anger, fear, or frustration. This doesn't mean approving of harmful behavior, but recognizing the suffering that drives such behavior. The colleague who takes credit for others' work might be acting from deep insecurity about their own competence. The aggressive driver might be rushing to a hospital or dealing with overwhelming stress at home. When you can see the pain behind people's problematic behavior, your natural response shifts from wanting to punish them to wanting to help heal the conditions that create such actions. This doesn't make you naive or passive. If anything, it makes you more effective because you're responding to the actual causes of problems rather than just their surface manifestations. A teacher once shared how this practice transformed her relationship with a particularly challenging student. For months, this child had been disruptive, disrespectful, and seemingly determined to derail every lesson. The teacher found herself dreading his presence and fantasizing about having him removed from her class. Then she learned about loving kindness practice and decided to experiment with it. Instead of seeing him as a problem to be solved, she began to wonder what kind of suffering might drive an 8-year-old to behave so defensively. She started silently wishing him happiness and peace during class, even when he was being difficult. Gradually, almost mysteriously, their dynamic began to shift. She found herself responding to his disruptions with curiosity rather than frustration. She began to notice moments when he showed genuine interest or vulnerability. Without consciously changing her teaching methods, she started reaching him in ways that had previously seemed impossible. Later, she discovered that he was dealing with his parents' bitter divorce and felt powerless and afraid most of the time. His disruptive behavior had been his confused attempt to feel some sense of control in a world that seemed chaotic and threatening. Her shift toward loving kindness had created a safe space where his natural goodness could emerge. This is the power of loving kindness practice. It doesn't change other people directly, but it changes the field of energy you bring to every interaction. People can sense whether you see them as fundamentally good or fundamentally problematic, and they tend to respond accordingly. The practice extends beyond individual relationships to encompass your attitude toward all of existence. You begin to see the trees outside your window as fellow beings deserving of appreciation rather than just background scenery. You start to feel genuine gratitude for the countless people whose work makes your daily life possible. From the farmers who grew your food to the engineers who designed your computer. This expanding circle of loving kindness doesn't make you soft or ineffective in dealing with practical challenges. Instead, it grounds you in such a fundamental sense of connection and goodwill that you can act decisively when necessary while maintaining your essential humanity. Rule 7. Find the sacred in the ordinary. The final principle brings us full circle to where we began, with the recognition that profound peace isn't found in exotic practices or special circumstances, but in the quality of attention you bring to the most mundane moments of daily life. Every spiritual tradition has recognized that the sacred and the ordinary are not separate realms, but different ways of perceiving the same reality. The Buddhist understanding takes this recognition to its logical conclusion, the understanding that enlightenment is not about transcending ordinary life, but about fully awakening within it. Consider the simple act of washing dishes. Most people approach this task as a chore to be completed as quickly as possible, while thinking about more important things. But when you bring complete attention to the experience, feeling the warm water on your hands, noticing the way soap transforms grease into cleanliness, appreciating the simple satisfaction of restoring order, dishwashing becomes a form of meditation that's as profound as any formal spiritual practice. This transformation of perception doesn't require changing your external circumstances. You don't need to quit your job, move to a monastery, or radically alter your lifestyle. You simply need to wake up to the extraordinary nature of what you're already doing. The breath you're taking right now is a miracle that happens automatically without any effort on your part. Your heart beats around 100,000 times each day without your conscious direction. The food you ate this morning is being transformed into energy and new cells through processes so complex that scientists are still discovering how they work. When you begin to see these everyday processes as the miracles they actually are, ordinary life reveals itself as an endless source of wonder and gratitude. The problem isn't that your life lacks meaning or beauty. The problem is that you've become so accustomed to miracles that you've stopped noticing them. The practice of finding the sacred in the ordinary begins with what Buddhist teachers call beginner's mind, approaching familiar experiences as if encountering them for the first time. When you drink your morning coffee, instead of consuming it mindlessly while checking your phone, you can receive it as if you've never tasted coffee before. Notice the aroma rising from the cup. Feel the warmth against your palms. Taste the complex flavors that emerge as the liquid touches different parts of your tongue. Appreciate the journey this coffee took from seed to cup, involving soil, sunshine, rain, and the hands of countless people working together to bring this simple pleasure into your morning. This quality of fresh attention transforms every routine activity into an opportunity for presence and gratitude. Walking to your car becomes a chance to feel your body moving through space and notice the quality of light and air around you. Waiting in line becomes an opportunity to practice patience and observe the fascinating complexity of human behavior. The sacred reveals itself not through special effects or supernatural experiences, but through the depth of attention you bring to what's already here. When you can wash dishes with the same reverence a monk brings to formal meditation, when you can listen to a friend with the same quality of presence you might offer during prayer, when you can walk down the street with the same awareness you might have while visiting a cathedral, then every moment becomes a doorway into the sacred dimension of existence. This doesn't mean becoming overly precious about ordinary activities or forcing artificial significance onto routine tasks. It means recognizing that the capacity for wonder, gratitude, and deep presence is always available, regardless of your external circumstances. A janitor who approaches his work with mindful attention and genuine care for creating clean, peaceful spaces is engaged in spiritual practice as profound as any formal religious ritual. A parent who listens to their child's stories with complete presence is participating in the sacred act of witnessing another being's unfolding consciousness. The understanding that ordinary life is already sacred eliminates the exhausting search for meaning in some future achievement or special experience. You don't need to climb mountains, visit holy sites, or have mystical visions to access the deepest truths about existence. They're available right now in the simple fact that you're alive, aware, and capable of choosing how to meet each moment. This recognition brings tremendous relief to the spiritual search. Instead of constantly seeking something beyond your current experience, you can rest in the understanding that what you're looking for is already here, waiting to be noticed with fresh eyes and an open heart. When you truly grasp this seventh principle, something profound happens to your relationship with time itself. Most people live in a constant state of postponement, believing that real life will begin when they finally get the promotion, meet the right person, pay off their debts, or solve their current problems. But when you discover the sacred nature of ordinary moments, you realize that real life has been happening all along. The mother changing her baby's diaper at 3 in the morning, exhausted and overwhelmed, might feel like she's enduring something to get through rather than participating in something meaningful. But when she brings conscious attention to this moment, feeling the trust in her child's eyes, noticing the miracle of this small being who depends completely on her love, she discovers that she's engaged in one of the most sacred acts possible, the nurturing of new consciousness into the world. This shift in perception doesn't require any special training or lengthy preparation. It happens the moment you choose to be fully present with whatever is occurring right now. The businessman eating lunch alone at his desk, feeling isolated and stressed about afternoon meetings, can transform his experience instantly by bringing grateful attention to his food, recognizing the nourishment entering his body, appreciating the brief respite from demands on his attention. The key is understanding that presence itself is sacred. When you're fully here, fully aware, fully engaged with life as it's actually happening, rather than how you think it should be happening, you're participating in the deepest mystery of existence. Consciousness is recognizing itself through your awareness, and this recognition is what every spiritual tradition has pointed toward through different languages and practices. But finding the sacred in ordinary life requires letting go of the fantasy that meaning comes from external validation or dramatic experiences. The quiet satisfaction of organizing a cluttered drawer, the simple pleasure of clean sheets, the moment of connection when you make eye contact with a stranger who smiles back. These small encounters with presence and appreciation are the building blocks of a meaningful life. This principle also reveals why so many people feel empty despite achieving external success. When you're constantly focused on the next goal, the next acquisition, the next level of accomplishment, you miss the actual texture of living. You become so busy pursuing happiness that you forget to notice when it's already present in small, undramatic ways. The practice deepens when you begin to see that everything you do affects the quality of consciousness you bring to other activities. When you rush through washing your hands because you're focused on getting to something more important, you're training your mind in patterns of distraction and impatience that will carry over into your supposedly important activities. But when you can wash your hands with complete attention, feeling the water temperature, noticing the sensation of cleanliness, appreciating this simple act of self-care, you're developing the capacity for presence that will enhance every other aspect of your life. The quality of attention you cultivate in small moments determines the quality of attention available for significant moments. A surgeon who practices mindful attention while tying his shoes in the morning is developing the same precision of awareness he'll need during complex operations. A teacher who brings conscious presence to grading papers is strengthening the same capacity for patient attention she'll offer her most challenging students. This understanding transforms your relationship with routine completely. Instead of seeing daily habits as obstacles to overcome, before you can get to the real business of living, you recognize them as opportunities to practice the very qualities that make life meaningful: presence, gratitude, patience, and care. The sacred nature of ordinary life also becomes apparent when you consider how interconnected every simple action really is. The glass of water you're drinking connects you to rain clouds, underground streams, treatment facilities, and the countless people who maintain the infrastructure that brings clean water to your tap. That single glass contains the entire web of relationships that sustains human civilization. When you can perceive these connections clearly, drinking water becomes an act of communion with the whole planet. You're not just hydrating your individual body, you're participating in the circulation of life itself, the same molecules that have flowed through rivers, clouds, plants, and other beings throughout history. This expanded awareness naturally gives rise to what Buddhist teachers call interdependence, the recognition that nothing exists in isolation. Your morning cup of coffee connects you to farmers in distant countries, to soil and sunshine and rain, to the truckers who transported the beans and the workers who roasted them. Every sip is a moment of receiving gifts from countless sources. With this understanding comes a natural sense of responsibility and gratitude. When you see clearly how much cooperation and care goes into providing even the simplest pleasures of daily life, wasteful consumption becomes almost impossible. You naturally want to receive these gifts with appreciation and use them wisely. The practice of finding the sacred in ordinary life also includes developing what Zen teachers call don't know mind, approaching familiar situations with curiosity rather than assumption. Even activities you've done thousands of times can reveal new dimensions when met with fresh attention. The route you drive to work every day contains details you've never noticed. The face you see in the mirror each morning has subtle expressions you've never observed. The sound of your own voice contains qualities you've never heard. When you approach the familiar with genuine openness, the world reveals layers of richness that were always present, but never perceived. This principle challenges the modern assumption that novelty and stimulation are necessary for fulfillment. While new experiences certainly have value, the deepest satisfaction comes from developing the capacity to find endless depth within whatever is immediately available. A person who can find genuine interest in watching clouds move across the sky has access to entertainment and beauty that no external source can provide or take away. The ultimate expression of this seventh rule is the understanding that your entire life, with all its apparent problems and limitations, is already a perfect expression of the sacred. This doesn't mean that difficulties aren't real or that you shouldn't work to improve challenging circumstances. It means recognizing that consciousness itself, the very awareness that knows about problems and seeks solutions, is the miracle that makes everything else possible. When you can rest in this recognition, while still engaging fully with the practical demands of human life, you discover what every spiritual tradition has pointed toward through different languages. The kingdom of heaven that exists within you, the Buddha nature that needs no improvement, the divine presence that permeates ordinary reality. This is not a theoretical understanding, but a lived recognition that transforms how you meet each moment. When washing dishes becomes as meaningful as attending a religious service, when listening to a friend becomes as profound as reading sacred texts, when walking to your mailbox becomes as significant as any pilgrimage, then you've discovered the secret that has been hiding in plain sight throughout your entire life. The sacred was never separate from the ordinary. The extraordinary was never distinct from the mundane. The difference lies not in what you're doing, but in the quality of consciousness you bring to whatever you're doing. And this quality of consciousness, this capacity for presence and appreciation, is always available, always renewable, always capable of transforming the most routine moments into doorways of wonder and gratitude. These 7 principles work together as an integrated approach to living, each one supporting and deepening the others. When you accept what is while changing what you can, you create the foundation for observing your mind without judgment. When you observe your mental patterns clearly, you naturally develop patience with the process of transformation. Patience allows you to practice non-attachment to outcomes, which makes space for embracing impermanence as liberation. As you release your desperate grip on permanence, your heart naturally opens to loving kindness toward all beings who share the same fundamental condition of constant change. And when you approach all beings with loving kindness, every interaction becomes an opportunity to find the sacred within ordinary encounters. This integration happens naturally as you practice, like separate streams flowing together to form a powerful river. You don't need to master each principle perfectly before moving to the next. They support each other, creating a way of being that becomes more stable and natural over time. The beautiful truth about these ancient discoveries is that they're not foreign impositions on your natural way of being. They're reminders of capacities you already possess, qualities of consciousness that emerge spontaneously when you stop interfering with your essential nature. Peace, patience, loving kindness, and the ability to find meaning in simple moments. These aren't achievements you need to earn through years of difficult practice. They're expressions of who you already are underneath the layers of conditioning and reactivity that have accumulated over time. The practices themselves are remarkably simple, almost deceptively so. Yet in their simplicity lies their power to transform the most entrenched patterns of suffering and reactivity. These aren't techniques that require perfect conditions or hours of daily commitment. They're ways of meeting life that can be cultivated in traffic jams, during difficult conversations, while doing laundry, or in the quiet moments before sleep. What makes these principles so effective is that they work with the natural intelligence of consciousness rather than against it. Your awareness already knows how to be present. Your heart already knows how to open. Your mind already knows how to rest in clarity. The practice is simply about removing the obstacles that prevent these natural capacities from expressing themselves fully. Think of it like clearing debris from a mountain spring. The water doesn't need to be taught how to flow. It needs the fallen branches and accumulated leaves to be gently removed so its natural movement can resume. Your inner peace doesn't need to be created from nothing. It needs the mental habits and emotional patterns that obstruct it to be recognized and gradually dissolve through understanding. This process happens differently for each person, unfolding according to individual circumstances and temperament. Some people find that accepting what is becomes natural almost immediately, while patience requires months of gentle practice. Others discover that loving kindness flows easily once they stop judging their thoughts. But embracing impermanence challenges every assumption they've held about security and control. There's no correct sequence or timeline for this development. The principles work together organically, each one creating conditions that support the others. As you become more accepting of reality as it is, you naturally become more patient with the pace of change. As your patience deepens, you find it easier to observe your mind without immediately trying to fix or improve what you notice there. The key is to approach this practice with what beginners often discover by accident, a quality of gentle persistence rather than forceful effort. Like learning to ride a bicycle, these skills develop through patient repetition rather than intense concentration. You fall off, get back on, fall off again, and gradually develop the subtle balance that makes effortless movement possible. Most people underestimate their capacity for transformation because they've been conditioned to believe that meaningful change requires dramatic interventions or complete lifestyle overhauls. But consciousness is incredibly responsive to small, consistent shifts in attention and intention. The person who takes 3 conscious breaths before responding to criticism is practicing the same awareness that mystics cultivate through years of formal meditation. You apply these principles. Every an invitation to practice patience, every encounter moment of frustration, is daily life is already providing countless opportunities to with a difficult person, offers a chance to cultivate loving kindness. Every change in circumstances, whether welcome or unwelcome, presents an opportunity to practice accepting what is while engaging skillfully with what can be influenced. The transformation doesn't happen all at once in a moment of dramatic realization. It emerges gradually that you're not as reactive to a landscape. One day, you notice like dawn breaking across your partner's moods as you used to be. Another day, you realize you've been driving in heavy traffic without the familiar surge of impatience and frustration. A friend mentions that you seem calmer, more present, though you can't pinpoint exactly when the shift occurred. These subtle changes accumulate over time, creating a fundamentally different quality of experience. Life's challenges don't disappear, but your relationship to those challenges transforms completely. Problems that once felt overwhelming become workable. Situations that used to trigger hours of mental spinning resolve themselves more quickly. The constant background, people accept anxiety that many as normal begins to fade, replaced by a basic sense of okayness that doesn't depend perfect. This emerging on external circumstances being stability has profound effects on everyone around you. Family members begin to relax in your presence without understanding why. Colleagues find themselves speaking more honestly during conversations with you. Strangers respond with unexpected warmth to your calm attentiveness. Your inner transformation becomes a gift to your entire community, rippling outward in ways you may never fully recognize. The practice also reveals something beautiful about the nature of human connection. When you're no longer desperately seeking validation, approval, or emotional support from others, you become capable of offering genuine presence without agenda. Your listening becomes deeper because you're not mentally preparing your response. Your compassion becomes more authentic because it's not mixed with the need to be seen as a good person. This quality of undemanding presence is one of the greatest gifts you can offer to anyone. In a world where most people feel chronically unseen and unheard, the simple act of witnessing someone without trying to fix, change, or improve them becomes profoundly healing. You become like a still lake that reflects whatever approaches its surface with perfect clarity and acceptance. Children are particularly sensitive to this quality of presence. They can sense immediately whether an adult is truly available or merely going through the motions of attention while mentally occupied elsewhere. When you develop the capacity to be fully present, children naturally gravitate toward you, drawn by the safety and acceptance they feel in your company. The same principle applies to all relationships. People can feel whether you're genuinely interested in their experience or simply waiting for your turn to speak. They sense whether you see them as they are or as you need them to be for your own comfort. This quality of authentic attention is so rare that it often moves people to tears when they finally experience it. But perhaps the most profound aspect of integrating these principles is how they transform your relationship with yourself. The harsh internal critic that has accompanied you through life begins to soften. The constant comparison with others loses its compulsive quality. The need to prove your worth through achievements and accomplishments gradually diminishes. In place of these exhausting patterns, a basic self-acceptance that depends on being emerges that doesn't depend on being perfect, successful, or even particularly happy. You begin to extend to yourself the same unconditional kindness you would offer to a beloved friend going through difficult times. This inner friendship becomes the foundation for all other relationships, allowing with others from you to connect fullness rather than neediness. The practice also reveals the artificial nature of most suffering. Physical pain, loss, and genuine hardship remain part of human experience. But the mental and emotional suffering that we add to these inevitable difficulties through resistance, judgment, and story-making begins to dissolve. You discover that you can feel sad without drowning in depression, angry without being consumed by rage, afraid without being paralyzed by anxiety. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally numb or spiritually bypassing legitimate feelings. It means developing the capacity to feel whatever arises fully while maintaining your essential stability. Like a mountain that experiences all weather without being fundamentally altered by storms, you learn to remain grounded in your deeper nature regardless of what's moving through your emotional landscape. The integration of these principles creates what some traditions call unshakable peace. Not because your external circumstances become permanently pleasant, but because your happiness is no longer dependent on circumstances being any particular way. This inner freedom is the greatest treasure available to human consciousness, and it's accessible to anyone willing to practice with sincerity and patience. As these understandings deepen, you may find that your priorities naturally shift without any forced effort. Activities that once seemed essential reveal themselves as distractions from what actually matters. Relationships that drain your energy either transform or naturally fade away. Career choices align more closely with your authentic values rather than external expectations. This isn't about becoming passive or losing ambition. It's about discovering that when your actions arise from inner peace rather than inner conflict, they become far more effective and satisfying. Work becomes an expression of your gifts rather than a desperate attempt to prove your worth. Relationships become opportunities for mutual growth, rather than negotiations for security and validation. The path isn't always smooth or predictable. There will be days when these principles feel foreign and difficult, when old patterns reassert themselves with surprising intensity. During these challenging practices periods, there's simply to return to the basics with compassion for yourself. You don't need to be perfect at this. You just need to keep beginning again, as many times as necessary. Each time you choose presence over distraction, acceptance over resistance, or kindness over judgment, you're strengthening capacities that will serve you throughout your life. These aren't temporary fixes or coping strategies. They're fundamental life skills that become more natural and reliable with practice, like learning to walk or speak your native language. The 7 principles we've explored tonight aren't the only doorways into peace, but they're among the most reliable and time-tested approaches available to human consciousness. They've been discovered and rediscovered by countless people across cultures and centuries, refined through millions of individual experiments with what it means to live wisely and well. Your own experiment with these principles begins now, not with dramatic changes or perfect understanding, but with simple willingness to meet the next moment of your life with slightly more awareness, acceptance, and kindness than you brought to the last one. This single shift, repeated consistently, has the power to transform everything. The Buddha's great discovery wasn't that life could be made perfect, but that our relationship to life's imperfections could be completely transformed. This transformation is available to you right now, not as a distant goal to achieve, but as a present reality to recognize and nurture. In this recognition lies the end of seeking and the beginning of finding what was never actually lost. As you reach the end of this exploration, take a moment to recognize what has already shifted within you simply through the act of deeply considering these ancient truths. The person who began this journey with me is not quite the same person who will close their eyes tonight. Something has loosened, softened, opened in the space of your awareness. These 7 principles aren't homework assignments or spiritual obligations to add to your already full life. They're recognitions of what you already know in your bones, but may have forgotten in the rush of daily existence. The peace you've been seeking isn't hidden in some distant monastery or locked away behind years of disciplined practice. It's woven into the fabric of this very moment, available every time you choose to notice what's already here, rather than chase what might be elsewhere. Your life tomorrow will present you with countless opportunities to remember these teachings. The moment when someone cuts you off in traffic becomes a chance to practice acceptance. The instant when your mind starts spinning stories about the future becomes an invitation to return to your breath. The encounter with someone who irritates you transforms into an opportunity to see the suffering behind their behavior and respond with compassion rather than reactivity. You don't need to be perfect at any of this. You just need to keep beginning again as many times as necessary with the same gentle persistence a parent shows a child learning to walk. Each stumble is not a failure, but information. Each return to presence is a victory worth celebrating. The peace you cultivate through these practices isn't just for you. It ripples outward in ways you may never fully see, touching your family, your community, and the countless strangers whose lives intersect with yours. In learning to meet your own experience with wisdom and compassion, you become a source of healing in a world that desperately needs what you have to offer. Tonight, as you rest, let these understandings settle into your consciousness like seeds in fertile soil. Trust that they will grow in their own time, in their own way, according to the perfect intelligence that governs all natural processes. Your transformation has already begun. All that remains is to allow it to unfold with the same grace that turns winter into spring, darkness into dawn, and seeking into finding what was never actually lost.